It's not exactly groundbreaking news that people like flawed characters. The anger and hatred a well-written bad person can instill in the viewer is pivotal in a story, and sometimes this even gets them love from the audience. But once that character is guilty of the worst crime possible, it's really hard to love them, and in fact, we shouldn't. We should, instead, try to understand them, and I don't mean sympathize with them, I mean generally sit down and think, what was the creator's intention with this character? What do they represent? How do they interact with the world and the people around them? And that's the case for Valentino. I'm sure that most of the people who clicked on this video are familiar with Hazbin Hotel. However, for the sake of clarity, I'm going to give a very quick overview of the show. Hazbin Hotel is a show released this year, originating from the pilot which aired on YouTube in 2019, created by Vivian Medrano, also known as vivziepop. Our story is centered around Charlotte Morningstar, Lucifer's daughter and princess of hell, as she tries to redeem sinners and get them into heaven before the yearly extermination sent by the angels. One of the sinners in question, which we'll be focusing on in this video, is Angel Dust, an adult film star who works for, you guessed it, Valentino, his director. Valentino is part of the V's, three overlords and major antagonists to the hotel crew who control the media in the Priding of Hell. The other two members are Vox, the TV demon who Valentino has an on and off relationship with, which we'll definitely get to later, Velvet, who controls social media, and lastly, of course, Valentino controls the porn industry. He is established by Vivienne as being the second oldest member of the V's, dying in the 70s, which I feel she kind of wanted to reflect into his character design, but I have to say, even though it's not horrible by any means, and it sure is better than a lot of others, it's definitely far from perfect. I like the fact that he's the second tallest member of the cast, standing at 10 feet, which immediately makes him feel more menacing. And while Viv definitely has a tendency to draw male characters as Tumblr sexy men, with all the same slim inverted triangle body type, which looks really goofy on certain characters, I don't really find that to be a problem with Valentino. Not only do I really like the fact that it makes him present as more gender non-conforming, adding to his fishnets and attire, but I also think that making him unattractive would imply negative character traits should be associated with conventionally ugly features, which definitely isn't a good look. However, my disappointment mostly stems from the fact that he's supposed to look like a moth, which, aside from his wings, is really hard to tell. Now, before going on with this character design and analysis in general, I'd like to say that I'm giving Viv the benefit of the doubt by reading deeply into it all, because I really hope that she actually put thought into all of this, even though a lot of her writing says otherwise. In Bittersweettooth world, however, all creators give a shit about their work, so I'm going to analyze them based on what we can see and how we can interpret it. So, again, Valentino is a moth demon, and if he actually looked the part, I think it could give space for a really interesting concept. Moths are night creatures, which reflects his lifestyle and profession, and I think it's fitting for him. There are also really cool details surrounding the fact that he's a moth, such as Vox brightening up his screen whenever he wants Valentino to pay attention to him, as moths are obviously attracted by bright lights. He's, like the other V's, color-coded, and his signature color is red. Now, red palettes are annoyingly overused in this show, and I don't think I can mention a single character that doesn't have red in their design. However, once again, it is fitting for Valentino, as the color represents desire and lust, but at the same time, it is often associated with anger and aggression, which are essential parts of his character.
Can you fucking believe that? He thinks he can run off and shack up with Lucifer's bimbo daughter.
Angel is living with Lucifer's daughter now?
Yeah, that bitch, Chalky or Chandler, or I don't know, something mannish like that. She's got this hotel, and which of these makes me look sexier?
Speaking of which, Valentino's personality and actions are the main reasons why the audience hates him, understandably so. And that's mainly because of his abusive nature and relationship with his employee, Angel Dust, which we'll get to later because boy, we have a lot to get through. But the fact about Valentino is that, like basically all abusers, he hides behind the charming, pleasant facade, and most of all, he's not like that to everyone in his life. Valentino takes great pride in his power. He loves being at the center of attention, and much like his friends and business partners, he has no problem crushing those below him, and that's kind of what ties the V's together. There's this conception that Vox and Velvet are better than him in terms of morality, but that's far from the truth, because every abuser has their enablers.
Oh, Velvet, I can see you're busy. Tell me, where's our hot-headed friend now?
Up in his tower, waiting for a flat-faced prince to calm him down.
And, what's got him so out of sorts today?
Who knows? But he tore up my best model, and you know the show can't wait for that unlucky bitch to pull herself back together.
Vox and Velvet are not only well aware of Valentino's behavior, but they take part in it. Velvet advertises Valentino's love potions, which are basically just roofies made out of his pheromones, and Vox has cameras everywhere, even in Angel's dressing room, implying that he fully knows what Valentino does in private. And I don't know about you, but being in an intimate relationship with a little rapist doesn't really seem moral in my eyes. Before the show actually aired, there was the implication that Valentino and Vox's relationship was abusive. However, Vox's characterization has changed drastically in the show, and that can no longer be considered canon. While it states that their relationship definitely isn't abusive, it is toxic in many ways, and that's simply because they're both so self-absorbed and awful that it's practically impossible for their relationship to be stable, let alone healthy. First of all, they're really aggressive. They break each other's belongings, they scream, and there's always a lot of rough handling involved. And when they're actually calm, they still crave each other's undivided attention constantly. Which is a problem, because they both have major obsessions which far surpass their relationship in terms of importance. For Vox, it's Alistair, Charlie's business partner and radio demon, who he sees as his arch-nemesis, going as far as feeling arousal when Alistair gets defeated in a fight during Extermination Day, screaming that him getting wounded is better than sex, and proudly admitting to being hard in front of his presumed boyfriend, which, if it was me, I'd be kind of pissed.
Fuck you, Alistair! This is better than sex!
On the other hand, Valentino's obsession is Angel Dust, whom Vox isn't exactly fond of, appearing happy at the idea of Angel quitting and, in general, seeming annoyed whenever his name is brought up. And this jealousy feels 10 times more disgusting when we see how Valentino actually treats Angel. While their dynamic is stretched much further in episode 4, we already start to see how toxic it is in episode 2, where we see that Valentino spams Angel's phone with voice messages that go from saying he misses him and overall being loving to him to actively berating and threatening Angel. Valentino uses love bombing as a manipulation tactic to keep Angel near him at all times, and when it doesn't work, he gets verbally, physically, and unfortunately sexually violent. While I think the execution of their awful relationship is not the best, I understand why so many people resonated with it. The scenes with Angel and Valentino are truly heartbreaking to watch, and that's not only because of the graphic content, but also because we learn in episode 4 that Angel sold his soul to him, meaning he can't escape him, ever. These kind of relationships, and specifically Valentino's most heinous actions, aren't about attraction or desire. Not even greed. They're about control. Valentino, like all the horrible people that inflict this kind of pain on others, wants to exert his power on Angel. He wants to remind him that he's owned. There's nothing sexual in the act of rape. There's just a desire to dehumanize and violate the victim, which is the case here, or at least I really hope it was intended this way, because it could really make someone who sympathizes with Angel feel less alone, and that what they went through is never their fault in any capacity. That it had nothing to do with the way they dressed, with their relationship to the person in question, or even if they seem to reciprocate at first. If there is no consent, then it's not sex, it's violence. And it feels disturbing that I even have to say this. There should be absolutely nothing sexy about Valentino and Angel's relationship. Realistic depiction of these sorts of struggles is pivotal if you're going to write a story about it. And again, The fact that a lot of people are able to resonate with Angel and feel like he reflects their emotions and struggles is really important, and I'm happy for those who found a little comfort in his character and felt a little less alone. If you're watching this, my heart goes out to you. After this extremely difficult segment, however, I need to get to my main point, which is Valentino is, of course, a disgusting, brutal, horrible person. But he is, in fact, a very well-written character. There are, however, some things I'm deeply afraid the writers will put in the following season about him, which would completely ruin the whole purpose of his character and the way the subject matter was handled before. First of all, he should absolutely not get the Bryce Walker treatment. For those of you who are lucky enough to not know what I'm talking about, Bryce Walker is a character in the infamous show 13 Reasons Why, a stereotypical jock who was a serial rapist. Now, while this show has piss-poor representation of every societal issue in the world, Bryce, for the first 2 seasons, had fulfilled his purpose, being a horrible, manipulative piece of shit who you were supposed to hate. And then they killed him off in season 3 and gave him a whole redemption arc through flashbacks, saying that he was a person, a human being.
You're right, I hurt people. I don't get to start over. Because no one's gonna let me.
Completely throwing any sort of grace and meaning out the window just to make him more morally gray. Yes, this was years ago, and I'm still angry about it because it felt like a slap in the face to any person who knew a Bryce in their life. And I am really scared that something similar would happen with Valentino, as the whole point of the story is about redemption. Now, I doubt it. Luckily, as Vivzie's writing team is a little bit smarter than this, but I will not appreciate any sort of attempt to make him remotely sympathetic. Giving him a backstory explaining why he is the way he is, if it's done right, sure. But trying to justify his actions in any way through a sob story would make me drop the show for good. One thing I'd actually like to see more next season is Valentino and Velvet's relationship. They get like 2 interactions together and mostly just coexist around Vox, which feels kind of weird. I'm not a fan of the gay dads and daughter dynamic Viv set up, and I just want to see them interact as friends, which I think we will get, as the V's have been confirmed to be the main antagonists of season 2, which leads me to my next point. If the show wants to have actual realistic depiction of an abusive relationship, Angel will not be able to break free from him in 1 episode. I say this because the show in this season had quite awful pacing, with so many things and arcs ending far too quickly, and if something shouldn't be rushed, it's definitely this. However, if one of the V's died next season, it would be quite cathartic for it to beat Valentino. Still, it's something that needs to be expanded on, and the writers need to take their time. But I wouldn't really miss him once he's gone. So, while Val is a really well-written character, he is also very hard to talk about, and he's also really painful to see on screen. I hope I was able to talk about the subject matter in a respectful way, since it's difficult for me to express myself on the matter, as it's a topic that is both really dear to me and very hard to stomach. I do, however, enjoy analyzing characters and stories, and I just hope I was able to do this justice. Thank you for sticking around to the end, and I will hopefully see you next time. This has been Bittersweettooth in an analysis of Valentino and Hazbin Hotel. Arrivederci.